Good morning. Happy Wednesday. I have Neuro Coffee in hand and oh, that is perfect. Can't wait to finish that. Okay. Wednesday is always a very busy day. Long clinic day, short morning, lots of stuff to do. But quick heads up, the first Q&A for IFSU members is up. For your viewing pleasure. We've got a lot of questions that are rolling through the Facebook group as well, so that's pretty exciting. If you haven't gotten signed up for IFSU, I suggest you do that. We're building some great coaches in there already, so that's kind of exciting. All right, quick Q&A for Wednesday. This comes from Julian, and Julian says, I'm new to your channel and your content and cannot get enough. Isn't that nice? Thank you, Julian. I've learned so much through your videos, especially during this time of COVID-19. I'm not sure if you've ever discussed hyperextension of the knees. If so, can you direct me towards information on that? If not, do you have any ideas on how to treat this problem? Yes, Julian, on all counts. So there's some information on knee valgus on the YouTube channel that you'll find of interest because it's similar but not quite the same. So let's define a little bit about what we're looking at first. By calling something hyperextension, the implication is that there is some sort of position in the imaginary sagittal plane, and I would say that that's more of just what it is. It's a visual. So it is a cancellation out of ERs and IRs that produces that appearance that it's going backwards. So it's going into excessive extension. What you really have there is an external rotation problem. But we also have some relative position issues that are actually creating this appearance. So we can actually talk about elbow hyperextension, if you will, and knee hyperextension at the same time because they are the same as far as the etiology and then how it appears. So I'm going to grab my knee here. And so again, I got a plastic model that doesn't move like a real skeleton, so we have to kind of keep that in mind. When we're talking about the valgus, we had this tibiofemoral ER relationship. And when we're talking about knee hyperextension, we still have that relationship, but there's going to be some differences that are trickling down and some stuff that's trickling up that make it go into what appears to be hyperextension versus the knee valgus. And you might see a little bit of both actually in some situations. But as the tibia rotates into external rotation, it hits its end constraint, and it's going to take that distal femur with it. So we're going to get an ER here, we're going to get an ER here. But if we get a early propulsive strategy in the foot, this is where we're going to see concentric orientation of the anterior medial aspect of the musculature around the knee. We're going to see an eccentric orientation on the posterior side. So when we think about musculature that is eccentrically oriented, I think semitendinosus is going to be eccentrically oriented. Your tibialis anterior is going to be eccentrically oriented, which is going to make it very difficult to flex the knee during gait. So again, if we can't flex it during gait, then it's going to try to go into what we would perceive as being that hyperextension. The short-headed biceps is going to be concentrically oriented. The lateral hamstring, so biceps femoris, the full biceps femoris is going to be concentrically oriented as well. And so that's why we get this appearance of what looks like the hyperextension. It's actually a twist. It's an ER, bring the femur into ER, but an early propulsive strategy in the foot, which is going to drive the force straight back through the knee. A lot of times what you're going to see up here is this is going to be your traditional sway back individual. So they're going to be probably narrow, probably posterior compression. You're going to see an eccentric pelvic diaphragm. And so again, they're falling hard towards the center. Their center of gravity is going to be forward and down through the middle. But because they've got that early propulsive strategy in the foot, they're going to drive that knee with what appears to be backwards into hyperextension. The elbow's the same way. We get the same kind of twist in an elbow that creates the hyperextension. So instead of having the anterior medial compartment being concentrically oriented and the posterior lateral compartment being concentrically oriented, what you're going to get is you're going to get a posterior lateral compartment concentric orientation. So supinator and coneus are actually going to create this really hard compressive strategy on the backside of the elbow, which again creates that appearance of hyperextension, but it's actually the twist of the radius hard into ER. When the anconeus picks up its concentric orientation on the back of the elbow, it actually twists the ulna in the opposite direction. So we have this kind of a relationship of the radius and the ulna twisting this way, and it pushes that elbow forward into what appears to be hyperextension. So under these circumstances, we got to get the elbow into it, or the elbow or the knee, whichever one we're talking about. We got to get it into a position where we can recapture the relative motion and relative positions. So when we're talking about the knee, we've got to get the foot into a good orientation where we can capture that relative motion of the calcaneus, the talus, and then the distal tibia. And so that's going to be through this middle range of propulsion. So we're going to have to get to there so we can capture relative motions. The knee is going to be flexed so we can again capture relative motions. The hip is going to be flexed again so we can capture relative motions. And so what you're going to have to do then is probably build somebody from the ground up. So these are the half kneeling people. You're going to try to work towards a split stance. And if you want to think about using the hamstrings as reins on a horse to orient the tibia. So remember, if we're talking about knee hyperextension, then that medial hamstring, so semitendinosus is going to be eccentrically oriented. So we need to pull that back to internally rotate that proximal tibia and try to hold that femur in its ER position relative to the tibia. So again, you're going to be using, this is where people talk about like weak VMOs and things like that. The reason that we have this weak VMO is because it's been positioned, it's been out of position, if you will, for an extended period of time. So it's very, very difficult for it to move through its full excursion of eccentric to concentric orientation. So that's going to try to balance itself out just through the reorientation of the knee. But you're probably going to be looking at medial hamstring to lateral hamstring orientation to get the tibia right, get the foot position correct, and then you just start to drive your chops and your lifts, your presses, all this stuff in half kneeling, but really being particular about this half kneeling position to help you recapture this normal excursion of tibial-femoral ER relationship to the femur. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, please ask a clarifying question as to where there may be some confusion. Like I said, it's very similar to the knee valgus stuff, but you get a different foot position that you're dealing with when you're looking at this hyperextension kind of a thing. But also keep in mind, it's not really hyperextension. It's a rotational problem, and it's people trying to go towards external rotation. So again, Julian, hope that's helpful. Have a great Wednesday, and I will see you guys later.